Hello, everybody. This is Dr. David Jockers, and today we're talking about 5 strategies to overcome keto breath. And so I teach the ketogenic diet, which is an amazing nutrition plan to help reduce inflammation, burn fat, improve the brain. But one of the common complaints people have is when they first begin to get into ketosis, they have this fruity smell to their breath. And we're going to talk about why that is. We're also going to talk about strategies, 5 key ones to help reduce that so you can have good smelling breath and get the benefits of ketosis. And so if you don't know me, my name is Dr. David Jockers. I am a doctor of natural medicine. I teach all around the country at churches and organizations and big online summits and all different types of events. And really my specialty is in the ketogenic diet, brain health, overall metabolic health and digestive health. And so I teach on a number of different topics, but ketogenic diet is really something that I've spoken a lot about, and I'm considered a leader in the field in this area. And so this is my beautiful wife, Angel, my little boys, David and Joshua. And really the ketogenic diet, the reason why I make it a goal to help my clients utilize the ketogenic diet or help them kind of adapt to where their body is able to spend time from period to period, not necessarily all the time, but spend certain phases in ketosis, is because of these 7 benefits. Number 1 is a ketogenic diet reduces inflammation. It's really a clean burning fuel. We're burning fat for energy, which is much cleaner than burning sugar or glucose. A lot less metabolic waste, so we reduce overall inflammation in the body. Helps improve our body's ability to burn fat and build lean body tissue. So one of the best ways to have a great physique is through using a ketogenic diet. It also helps with mental clarity and sharpness because we know that ketones are very, very good energy sources for the brain. The brain runs off of either glucose or ketones, and ketones produce, again, less metabolic waste. So they're a more efficient energy source for our body to utilize. They also help with energy. When your blood sugar is able to remain stable because you're not relying on sugar as your primary fuel source, you'll notice that you have very stable, high energy. So your energy will be high, but also very stable. It's not going to jump up and then drop. And so it's very, very powerful for energy and performance. Also, the reduced levels of inflammation help to clear your skin. You notice reduced cravings. Fat is very satiating, so you have a greater level of satiety between meals, and you're craving sugar and carbohydrates a lot less. And really, ultimately, when you are hungry, you're craving the right types of things, good fats and antioxidants, and you're craving minerals. Like, for example, I like to drink broth and different things like that, herbal teas. You start to crave really healthy, life-giving foods and life-giving drinks. Mitochondrial biogenesis. This is one of the most exciting topics when it comes to the ketogenic diet, because our mitochondria is what produces energy within every cell of the body. Biogenesis means the formation of new mitochondria. The more mitochondria we have, the more energy each cell of the body is going to be able to produce, and the better we're going to be able to protect our DNA, so that reduces our risk of chronic disease, and the more we're able to get out of life because we're producing more energy, so therefore we're going to have more energy, we're going to have better performance, better cognitive function. So mitochondrial biogenesis is awesome topic for the human species to really focus in on, because it's going to help take us to higher levels of performance and higher quality of life. And of course, that results in anti-aging, so we're going to age slower, and we're going to reduce our risk of chronic disease. So how does it work? Basically, in most people, when they're eating a higher carbohydrate diet or traditional diet, they're going to use sugar or glucose for energy. And that's what's going to be produced within, or that's what's going to be used within the cell to produce energy. And unfortunately, that's just not a good metabolic fuel. It has a much lower miles per gallon usage, right? So if we're talking about gas mileage, sugar is much lower, significantly lower, okay, compared to fat or ketones. For example, ketones will produce somewhere between 34 to 38 molecules of something called ATP, whereas glucose produces basically 2 molecules, and it produces a whole lot of waste. So it's like driving a car that is getting 2 miles per gallon and producing a whole lot of fog and smoke and pollution, Whereas the ketogenic diet, you're driving a car that's getting, let's say, 34 miles per gallon in comparison, with very little pollution, very little um, poor, basically carbon monoxide and all kinds of different toxins that come out of automobiles. A lot less of that coming out. It's a very clean fuel source. So of course we'd want the one with the better gas mileage and the less toxins that are being released. So that's why a ketogenic diet is so powerful for our body. Yet most people are driving around in, using a fuel system that gets 2 miles per gallon and creates a rampant amount of pollution because they're relying on sugar and glucose as their primary energy source. So let's look at the ketogenic diet. In general, we want it to be high in good fats, right? Typically 60 to 80% fats. On this plate, I've got 75%, which is really where we want it for somebody that's not active, not really doing resistance training or muscle building type exercises. Then we would want a high fat diet like this, 75%. If you are doing more high intensity training, then I've seen a lot of people where they're able to get into and be in a good state of stable ketosis with as little as 60% fats. And they bump up their protein a little bit, around 30%, and somewhere around 10% carb intake, 10 to 15% carb intake, 25 to 30% protein intake, and able to maintain ketosis. But again, that's more of an individual with higher level of activity. Somebody that's more sedentary is going to want a plate that looks like this. So let's look at different ketones. And there's three major ones. One is acetone, and that's really what we're breathing out. So when we have keto breath, what we're actually smelling is the acetone on our breath, and that's the ketone, and it's got kind of a fruity smell to it. We produce two other ketones. We produce acetoacetic acid, which is what we urinate out. So that's what we, in a sense, if we're testing our urine ketones, okay, you can get urine strips really cheap. You'll actually be testing your acetoacetic acid. Now, we don't really use that in the body for energy, but it is a marker that tells us we're producing ketones. Because if we're producing acetoacetic acid, we're also going to produce acetone and beta-hydroxybutyric acid. We're going to produce all three of those. Beta-hydroxybutyric acid technically is not really a ketone. However, it acts in this way. Basically, it acts to help. It acts to benefit our body in the way that ketosis does. And that's really the major one that we test in our bloodstream. And so beta-hydroxybutyric acid is what we're testing when we look at blood ketones. You can see this chart here. Nutritional ketosis basically begins really around 0.5 millimole per liter, okay, of ketones. And you can test that on blood, okay? The optimal range for ketosis is considered between 1 and 3 millimole per liter of ketones on your blood, okay? Now, the chance of you getting into ketoacidosis, which is technically somewhere around 20 plus millimole per liter, basically, unless you're not producing any insulin at all, you're not going to get into that state. So really just a type 1 diabetic that's uncontrolled, they're the only ones that are really at risk for that. So that's not really an issue. And ultimately, unless you are doing just a very long fast, talking about 20, 30, 40-day fast, you're not going to get into this starvation ketosis either. But this optimal ketone zone, you can definitely get into by following the right nutrition principles. And when you start getting into that zone, that's when you can develop this keto breath that we're talking about here. And so what are the main causes of keto breath? Well, I see two big things. Number one, breathing off ketones. We talked about that with acetone. Number two is excessive protein intake. So sometimes people go and they consume too much protein, kind of like an Atkins diet where it was a lot of protein. It wasn't as much fat. It was more like a 50% fat, 40 to 45% protein, 5 to 10% carbs. That's really what kind of the Atkins diet was more. That was really more the macromolecule makeup of the Atkins diet. So with that, the people would develop this keto breath. They would develop this ammonia breath. And that's really what happens when we break down protein. When we have high levels of protein in our diet, we're going to develop more of an ammonia breath because of the breakdown of ammonia. So two things with that. Number one is reduce the amount of protein. So ketogenic diet, well formulated, should not be very high protein. It should be lower protein. At really ultimately what people are going to need is about a gram per kilogram of body weight. So figure out your kilograms of body weight. So if you take your pounds, if you use the pound system, you take your pounds, like I'm 165 pounds. So if I take 165 and I divide it by 2.2, because it's basically 1 kilogram is 2.2 pounds, it comes out to 75. So basically I have 75 kilograms of body weight is what I weigh. So 70, that's basically about the amount of protein I would need, about 75 grams. Now, if you do resistance training, so if you do high intensity strength training, that particular day, you may want to go up to about 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. So what does that look like for somebody like myself? Basically, I would take, if I divide 75 divided by 2, 37.5, add that to 75, and it gets me to about 112.5. So I'm looking at somewhere on a typical day between 75 and maybe 115 grams of protein for myself. Workout days, high strength training days, going up to about 115. And days where I'm not training, being down around that 75 to 80 range would work great for me. So that's typically what I'm looking for with the Atkins diet. If I followed that, I would probably be more along the lines of 150 grams of protein, which would be far too much, and I could develop ammonia breath. Now, if you are consuming too much protein, you do have ammonia, you can do things like parsley is really good, lemon or lime, L-glutamine supplementation, as well as milk thistle, all really good for helping reduce ammonia. And I actually run an organic acid test on a lot of my clients, and it's a urine test, and it will actually look for a marker called orotic acid, a biomarker. That's a sign that your body's not metabolizing ammonia well. So that's another thing. Some people just genetically and based on the health of their gut, their digestive system, they will not metabolize ammonia well, and they'll end up with high blood ammonia, and that can also affect their breath. And when that's the case, I usually get them on L-glutamine supplementation using some things like milk thistle, vitamin C, lemons and limes, stuff like that can be really helpful. Parsley, so bitter herbs can be really helpful for reducing ammonia. So let's look at really what a good ketogenic diet should look like. You can see the clean protein in that third stage. So that's really not the foundation. Whereas in Atkins diet, it was really more the foundation was eat meat every day, all the time, basically just about every meal. Whereas here, we're focusing on good fats. So we want a lot of avocados. We want a lot of coconut oil, grass-fed butter, pasture-raised eggs. So we want these to be the foundation because they're really high in good fats. They're lower in protein. Most of those have little to no protein other than the eggs. We want a lot of non-starchy vegetables and low glycemic fruit. This was really, in the Atkins diet, really not discussed. So we want a lot of good veggies, but things like broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, cucumbers, celery, these are all great. We want tons of herbs, basil, oregano, thyme, rosemary, ginger, turmeric. These herbs are loaded with phytonutrients that are good for our body, and we want to make sure we're getting a ton of phytonutrients. This should be a really nutrient-rich diet. A lot of times when people are doing a ketogenic diet, or a lot of the popular websites and videos that are on YouTube, websites that are out there, do not really focus on nutrients. They focus on macromolecules. We're getting the fats in, but they don't focus on the nutrients. And I'm all about the nutrients. I want tons of phytonutrients in my diet. So I focus on herbs, low glycemic fruit like berries in moderation. Lemons and limes are fantastic. Loaded with vitamin C, bioflavonoids, all kinds of good stuff in the lemons and limes. So you're just really focusing on non-starchy veggies, lots of herbs, low glycemic fruit. And then you add in your clean protein, okay? So that's going to be your wild-caught fish, your grass-fed beef, your lamb, your organic chicken and turkey, things like that. So you would add that in. And personally, I only consume meat most days one time, right? So I typically will stick with one meal, one meat-containing meal a day on most days, okay? And I like to do a protein shake using a really good high-quality protein, like a bone broth protein, or a pea protein, or even a non-denatured grass-fed whey protein at times. And those can be really, really supportive to the body. And using like a lot of coconut milk, and I put avocados in there so I get a lot of fat, good fat, coconut oil. I'll use MCT oil in there, all kinds of good stuff like that. And then for dinner, I usually will use lots of non-starchy veggies, healthy meat. I put grass-fed butter on my vegetables, on my meat, so I get a lot of grass-fed butter in there. oftentimes olives or olive oil if I'm having a salad, lemons and limes. So lemon, squeezing lemon over everything or putting lemon juice on. And so that's usually how I'm doing that. Lots of herbs. I use tons of herbs typically on my dinner meals. So that's really the way to go. It's where you get those nutrients. Now, nuts and seeds, okay, you can do that. Nuts and seeds can be somewhat challenging on the digestive system, so I don't recommend tons of them, but definitely some nuts and seeds can be really healthy for the body. I've got a list right there: pecans, almonds, walnuts, Brazil nuts, pumpkin seeds, chia seeds, flax seeds, hemp seeds, pistachios are good. Really want to stay away from peanuts for sure. And cashews can be a little bit higher in carbs, so you got to be careful with those as well. Fermented foods. So I always try to get fermented foods in my diet every day, whether it's coconut water kefir, something called a brand called Kavita that I love. I'll always look for the low sugar ones. I also love to do fermented vegetables like pickles, kimchi, sauerkraut. Coconut milk yogurt is another great option. If you can do dairy, then you can do things like grass-fed yogurt. Natural sweeteners, so stevia, lohan extract, also called monk fruit. Those are my favorite, but there are other good ones out there like raw honey. But you'd only want to do that in moderation if you're on a ketogenic diet, just really small amounts. So like you can see these desserts right here. We've got a vanilla coconut milk ice cream. We've got chocolate coconut fudge cups. These are all, I mean, basically carb-free, no sugar. They're flavored with stevia. They taste absolutely amazing. And you can find these on drjockers.com, these recipes and many more that go into this. So what causes bad breath? You know, in general, you've got things like morning breath, okay, which can actually have a lot to do with the way that you're breathing. And oftentimes we're mouth breathers, okay? And when we mouth breathe, what ends up happening is we actually dry out our mouth and we can create an environment that's ripe for bacterial overgrowth. So one of the things I actually do, this actually helps me sleep better, is I actually mouth tape. So I'll put tape over my mouth and it helps me to sleep deeper and feel more rested when I wake up because I keep my stress hormones down. When we breathe out of our mouth, it'll actually naturally raise up our stress hormones. We won't get as good a melatonin secretion. And it can make a big difference in your quality of sleep, your stress hormones, your morning cortisol levels, your morning blood sugar levels. I've seen a lot of people that are trying to get into ketosis see significant changes in their morning blood sugar and their ketone levels when they do mouth taping. So I just put a piece of tape over my mouth and it makes a difference. And my morning breath is significantly lower because I haven't been breathing out of my mouth all night. Okay, so that's big. Constipations. We got to get the bowels moving well. If we're not, then we're going to end up with microbial overgrowth, which those microbes are going to produce more endotoxin, which obviously the toxin is going to cause more issues with breath. So look out for that. Food, you know, there's different things like onions and garlic that can oftentimes cause bad breath. H. pylori infections, so certain gut infections can cause issues like H. pylori, which releases an enzyme called urease, which blocks urea production, creates more ammonia, and that can end up leading to bad breath as well. So chronic bad breath can oftentimes be an H. pylori infection in the stomach. And then, of course, what everybody thinks of is poor oral hygiene. So, you know, brushing our teeth, flossing, seeing a dentist, those are all very important steps. Okay, one big thing that I recommend for my clients is using these natural little herbs. We talked about the benefit of herbs, and you can just keep these. For example, you can dump out your little Tic Tac container. We know Tic Tacs are loaded with toxins like aspartame that's in there, all different types of chemical toxins. Get rid of that. Instead, load up that Tic Tac container with herbs like rosemary or fennel seeds. I find those two work the best, but mint, parsley is awesome as well. Clove can work really good, cinnamon. So you can just, like for me, I'll just munch on rosemary or fennel seeds, and they're really naturally like astringent and naturally aromatic and strong. They're kind of a strong flavor. And so you munch on those, and they're really good for your digestive tract, but also really good for freshening your breath. They're also good for the brain. Like rosemary helps boost up acetylcholine, which is a major neurotransmitter involved with memory formation. So you have a lot of side benefits as well. But I would munch on these. That's going to help with bowel activity. Believe it or not, these are what's called carminative herbs, which help to distill gas, bloating, breath issues, indigestion, and help to stimulate bowel motility. So getting the waste out of your system. So using these on a regular basis can be really, really helpful. You can also do herbal teas like mint tea, which is a really good idea as well to keep your breath under control and to support your whole body because they help to detoxify your system and help with your overall digestive tract. Also doing fermented foods. I was talking about the fermented foods I like. Doing fermented foods on a regular basis can be really good for detoxing gut health, stimulating bowel motility, and reducing bad breath. So we talk about sauerkraut, pickles, kimchi. I like the mild, not the real spicy kimchi. Coconut water keeper. My favorite is the lime mint. We talked about the benefit of mint. Lime is also rich in vitamin C and bioflavonoids. So really, really good combination for freshening your breath. And then tips for your oral health. Brush your teeth at least twice a day and floss your teeth every day. Visit, a good dentist. I would recommend a holistic dentist. I have a really good holistic dentist in my area that I send patients to, and my wife and I see to help clean our teeth and do it, without fluoride and all the toxic chemicals that a lot of dentists do. You want to replace your toothbrush. You want to make sure a toothbrush is very effective. So replace it every 3 to 4 months or when it's frayed. You can also use a tongue scraper. That can really help, especially if you're somebody that battles things like candida or yeast, because that yeast will oftentimes develop kind of a thrush where you've got this film on your tongue. So using a tongue scraper to remove the dead cells and bacteria in the morning can also be very helpful. And that's simple and easy. You can find tongue scraper on Amazon. You want to make sure you're using a good toothpaste, okay, that doesn't have fluoride and chemicals in there. You want to make sure you're eating a healthy diet, obviously staying away from sugar. Sugar breeds the growth of yeast and bad bacteria, so you want to stay away from that. Eat a diet rich in whole foods. In general, if you're really focusing on your breath, that's one of your main health goals. I would stay away from things like onions and garlic on a regular basis, maybe on occasion, or when you do them, make sure you've got a lot of things like parsley and cilantro and dandelion, a lot of these bitter herbs, mint, that can really help with freshening the breath. Dark greens really help to neutralize the sulfur smell that you smell with garlic and onions, so be aware of that. Also, I'm a huge fan of oil pulling, so you just put you don't even need a tablespoon. You put in like half a teaspoon, honestly, of coconut oil in your mouth, and you just kind of let it swish around. Okay, and there's actually companies that have come out now and they're making like coconut oil, activated charcoal, which is really good for binding, and some essential oils, and you can do oil pulling with that. I oil pull every morning when I wake up. Right now I'm just doing it with just straight coconut oil, and it works great. So I just put that in my mouth, swish it around for 10 to 20 minutes. Really, really good for grabbing up bad bacteria, yeast, things like that. And then you just spit it out and brush your teeth. In general, they tell you to spit it out in a trash can because the oil could block your sink, right? And so all the different plumbing in your house. So make sure you just spit it out in the trash can, and that can work better. And then afterwards, you would brush your teeth. So that's basically how you do that, how you do the oil pulling. And it's going to be really beneficial for grabbing up bad microbes and microbial waste and pulling it out of your mouth. So look into that. Also, this is a great mouthwash. So if you are looking for like a non-toxic mouthwash, most mouthwashes out there, very toxic. This one has dead sea salt, xylitol, which is a natural, it's a sugar alcohol, but it's not bad for your body, especially using it orally, like in toothpaste and in mouthwash. It's actually the best benefit of xylitol. Some people, when they digest it, have gas and bloating. Like I don't do well with foods with xylitol, but I can do mouthwash or toothpaste just fine because it's not getting into my digestive tract. So I'll rinse my mouth sometimes with this, and it works great, and then spit it out. So oral essentials. And you can find this on Amazon or on my article about keto breath. We talk about it. So anyways, with that being said, you can get through the keto breath. And a lot of my clients will tell me that it can be annoying and uncomfortable when they first start on a ketogenic diet, but shortly after that, it's not as intense, and it's better and easier to deal with. And then if you use these strategies, you basically will barely notice it, if at all. Okay. And so again, a ketogenic diet is awesome because it helps you burn fat, build lean body tissue, helps support your brain, your blood sugar stability, which improves your emotional balance, reduces inflammation and pain, and dramatically reduces your risk of chronic disease like heart disease, cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's disease. So there's a lot of benefit to following the ketogenic diet. And if you want really just more help with this process, I have an online program. It's called the Navigating the Ketogenic Diet course with meal plans and food guide and videos of me instructing you on recipes, on nutrition principles. It's really got everything you need to be able to successfully follow the ketogenic diet. So if you want that, I mean, we got a full, as you can see, live video library with all kinds of stuff. I take you through my kitchen and I mean, all kinds of good stuff that on there. So be sure to look out for that. And you can find that on my website, drjockers.com. Under the programs header, you'll find the Navigating the Ketogenic Diet e-course, okay? And you can go ahead and get started with that program. And, I guarantee you're going to see amazing results with your health with that. So hope you guys enjoyed today's training, and we will see you back on a future training. God bless you guys. Bye-bye.